Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome on into Let's Bet It. Lauren Javar here with Mark Zinno, Jared Smith. I don't know how we got so lucky, guys, to be doing two shows in a row with both of you guys, but here we are. We're back at it. After yesterday, we are better than ever. How are we today? How the heck do you guys match every day? You're both wearing gray.
Are we matching today? Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you're just a darker shade. You're one of the other 50 shades of gray than I am.
I'm
this particular shade of gray. It's a great start to the morning here. Listen, I got to tell you, I got up this morning. I went for a run, and I got out of the shower, got cleaned up, and the hair just is on point. Jared, your hair on point, looking very dapper today. Lauren, how are you?
Thank you.
I'm good. My alarm didn't go off, so that was a good start.
You don't say.
So I'm running around.
You don't say. I mean, somebody just did this morning and just decided to show up for work.
And it still looks good. I don't know how. I don't need to.
I don't know how either, but it does.
Take a shower and do my hair to make it look good, but I mean,
there you go.
Just wake up and show up.
She woke up like this.
Yeah.
Yes, the natural beauty is what emanates from you. Others have to work at it. For you, it's too easy. It's hard work making you look this good. By the way, check out my chat name for you.
Yeah, did you see what we put in the chat?
Lauren's bedhead. Oh my God, you guys are so horrible. You guys are so horrible.
I mean, when you sleep through your alarm, you deserve a little bit of ribbing here, just a little bit.
Just for people. Well, okay.
Friction.
I am not on East Coast time. I am on Mountain time. It is only 8:02 a.m. here, so I'm not I'm not just having this massive slumber.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
It's early here. It is early.
Take that shot of espresso. Zeno's playing.
In the immortal words of Dr. Evil, boo frickety hoo.
Okay, well, now that we're done making fun of me, let's get into some actual sports talk. We have a lot to talk about today because the Major League Baseball trade deadline ends today at 6 p.m. At this point, Juan Soto is still up for grabs, and it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. You look at what's happened so far. Obviously, Josh Hader traded to the Padres in exchange for 4 players. The biggest one probably being Taylor Rogers, right? And the Padres and Brewers are both kind of taking a gamble here because the Padres are hoping that Hader's most recent trouble is just a phase, and the Brewers are hoping that they can get good production from Rogers. So these teams could end up playing each other in the postseason. I think it's a good trade for both teams, probably a little bit better for the Padres. What are your guys' thoughts? Jared, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was a little surprised with the Brewers in the heat of a pennant race to trade away their top closer. Now, Hader's been struggling. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me in terms of his recent splits.
He was at a 1.3 ERA heading into July, and then after July he's like at 4.3 or something. I don't know if that's exact, but it's like something.
No, that sounds right because I recall him blowing. I remember watching a game in San Francisco a couple weeks ago where I think the Brewers had like a 5-run lead in the 9th, and he blew it. So he's been a little bit shaky. And the one thing I will say about the Brewers is, if there's one thing that they are better than most in, it's their pitching depth. So if there's a team that can afford to trade away their top closer and still get by with the likes of Devin Williams or Taylor Rogers, who have been very good this year, I think it's, acceptable. But how often does a team in first place in their division in August trade their closer away? I don't know if that's ever happened before. So it is a unique situation, and I think it sets the Padres up to continue to add, frankly, because clearly they are all in. They've been all in from the start, and I think they're going to be the winners of the Soto sweepstakes after today is all said and done.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's going to be interesting because obviously – no, Zeno, you can go.
I was going to say, Lauren, I don't know that Soto actually – listen, Soto getting moved before the deadline is just tough because there's really not a legitimate reason to trade for him without a contract extension in hand. And that's the tough part of this. And Scott Boras is his agent. And instead of having only 2 or 3 suitors who can do this at the deadline, he'd like to have like 28 or 29 suitors who can do it this offseason. I think if you gave Scott Boras some true serum, he'd rather just go to the offseason and be able to work with multiple other clubs. Now, if they can pull it off, kudos to them, and watch their odds to go overtake the NL West sort of change dramatically at this point in time. But I think the Josh Hader move for the Padres is as much about, just getting out of the first round of the playoffs as it is going deep into the playoffs. Because in reality, here's what's going to happen. They are going to get the loser of the NL East, whether it's the Mets or the Braves, whoever finishes second. That consolation prize is likely playing the Padres in the first round in a 3-game series. And Hader's the kind of guy in that situation that can make a monumental difference if he's on point.
Yeah, it is going to be crazy to see where Soto ends up. In my opinion, I think that he stays in Washington until probably like January 1st. We might be having a different conversation. But at this point, there's no reason to be trading him away. Even though people are saying that the Cardinals are heating up, Padres are really heating up. But it does. I mean, with the Padres, like you just gave mega contracts to Tatis Jr. and Machado. Where are they getting this money?
And Joe
from?
Musgrove yesterday.
Right?
They just signed Joe Musgrove like
yesterday.
2 days ago.
Yeah. So I don't know if they're going to be able to have the money to give Juan Soto what he wants. Frankie Montas, did I even say that right? Frankie Montas. Scott Efros. Thank you, Montas. And Scott Efros traded to the Yankees. Is this a good move for them?
I think so. I mean, look. Zeno, I was at dinner last night with some family, all my Yankees family, and so all we do is yell at each other about the Yankees. And the deal was like happening as we were sitting down. And I remember asking my cousin about it, who's took me to Yankee games when I was like 5 years old. So he's been following the team for a while, and he said it's a great deal, and I agreed. And here's why: let's just flash forward to Yankees Astros ALCS. I mean, that is the inevitable train that we are on. Games 1 and 2 right now will be in the Bronx. Great. Garrett Cole, Nestor Cortez. You would hope that they win both of those games. Maybe they don't. Maybe they split, but I think that's the worst case scenario. Let's say they go 2-0 in those games. Then you go back to Houston and you throw Jordan Montgomery and Jamison Tyone in games 3 and 4. Forget it. Like, the series might as well just be tied, and then we'll go back to New York for game 5. Actually, I don't know. My game 5 might be in Houston, but you get my point. Those 3 and 4 starters are not going to get the job done in Houston. So you bring in a guy like Frankie Montas, who's pitched in the division for years, understands what it's like to pitch at Minute Maid Park. I think this move, but now I would have much rather had Luis Castillo, but they couldn't match the Mariners' offer. But I think this move at least sets them up to have a chance to win game 3 in Houston with Montas on the mound. But again, we're flash forwarding to a future that isn't quite there yet. But to me, that's why the Yankees made this deal. They didn't give up a ton. They did give up the 5th-rated prospect. But again, if they want to win a World Series, they needed to add to their rotation. So I'm glad that they did.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing. Go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead.
No. I was going to move on to Trey Mancini.
I was just going to say nothing would ruin my dinner more than anything than talking about James Tyone starting in the playoffs for the Yankees. Man, what a waste of Southwest egg rolls as they're coming out to the table. They talk about James Tyone.
Oh, my God. No, don't waste the egg rolls, Zeno. Don't waste the egg rolls. Last but not least, you talked about the Astros. Trey Mancini traded to the Astros.
This is a huge move. I mean, Mancini is exactly the kind of bat that when you get him in a line now, and I don't want to disparage the Orioles lineup because they're playing really well. Like, this is the best surprise in baseball this year. Yeah. I worked in Baltimore for 10 years. I covered that team. I've been inside that clubhouse more times than you can count. So I have a fondness for the Baltimore Orioles, and I'm so glad to see them relevant once again. That said, Trey Mancini is exactly the bat. When you put him in a lineup with accomplished hitters around him, that's going to benefit from top to bottom. He's got enough power to jack the ball out of the ballpark. He's a great bat and a consistent hitter, an amazing clubhouse guy. He's going to gel well in Houston. He's going to get his first crack at the postseason. Like, this is the kind of move that when you look back at the deadline, you go, wow, they'll contemplate keeping him in the offseason, right? Like, extending him. I mean, as far as making him part of the fold, because he's going to fit in so well in Houston. This is a move that scares the hell out of me as a Yankee fan because they added Trey Mancini.
He's a great guy too, overcoming cancer. Like his story is heartwarming. His goodbye to Baltimore fans was one of those things that tugs on your heartstrings, no doubt. And man, the Astros they just get it. And again, it's tough for me to admit, and you want to talk about the cheating and this and that. I don't care about that. That happened years ago. We're capping this season. And this season, they are, I think, now a full step better than the Yankees in a 7-game series.
Yeah.
And I think that's tough to admit, but you have to be unbiased when we're looking at this. They are so deep with their rotation, and now they got their lineup deeper, which was a little bit thin without Brantley. So I think this is the best team in the American League, and they got a lot better yesterday.
Trade deadline ends at 6 p.m. today. Juan Soto still on that trade block. We'll see what happens with him, and we'll keep you updated, obviously, tomorrow on the show if anything does happen. Or if it doesn't, we'll probably still talk about it anyway. So, okay, let's get into Is the Trend Your Friend? I have 2 run lines and 1 Nerfy trend. And the Nerfy one, I'll kind of throw to Zeno because I know he's on it today. So first of all, Diamondbacks run line. I gave you this yesterday. They were 8-0. Now they are 9-0 on the run line in their last 9 versus the American League. Are we friending this trend? Because now it's 9-0.
I faded it yesterday, so I will wear the clown nose here. But Zach Davies was awful. They just seemed to stay in that game. And I think it was an extra inning game. Let's look at today. Oh, I'm on this game a little bit later. Gallon McKenzie. Listen, Gallon's been a guy that I thought was a Cy Young candidate, and it hasn't happened. Yeah, I would consider the D-backs run line in this game. McKenzie's not special. Neither guy's really faced the other lineup, so no real data to support. But if that trend is hitting so hot and the Diamondbacks have been really good on the run line and they've got Zach Gallen on the mound today, all right, I'll friend it.
Yay, we have a friend.
Woo!
We have a friend.
I don't have any friends.
Zeno, what about this one, Zeno? Twins run line. The Tigers are 0-7 on the run line in their last 7 against AL Central teams.
I mean, I watched that game last night a little bit, and I was waiting for Detroit to actually show up, and start hitting the ball.
They're Detroit.
No, they don't. They're so bad.
Lauren.
The Twins start Joe Ryan, who previously to his last time out against San Diego when he got bombed and gave up 10 runs in 4 2/3, he was really, really good. He had not given up more than 3 runs in his previous 4 starts, striking out 7 in 3 of his last 4 starts. So I kind of like the pitching matchup here in favor of Minnesota, so I would friend this.
Okay, I like it. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about this Nerfy because I'm going to come to you with this. I know this is going to be one of your friends. Marlins versus Reds Nerfy. The Nerfy is 11-0 in the Marlins' last 11 games as favorites.
Wow.
Zeno is friending this trend.
Of course I am. The Marlins are like one of the best nerfy teams in baseball, and I don't know. And the only reason they are is because their offense sucks and they don't score ever, and they have really good starting pitching for the most part. This is actually going to be a write-up on the Pickswise website for me as soon as the show is over for a 3-star play of the day. But this is a game where the breakdown comes from the starting pitchers. Graham Ashcraft going for the Cincinnati Reds. Now, he's gone 2 Nerfies in a row. He gave up 3 consecutive Nerfies before that in the three previous starts. But that was to the Mets, the Yankees, and the Cubs. They're all top 7 in first inning run scored percentage this year. Last time out when Ashcraft faced the Miami Marlins, posted a Nerfie against him. Now, Braxton Garrett starts for the Marlins. Garrett started the season in late June after coming off the IL and being called up from AAA. He went 9 straight starts to start the year with a Nerfie. He had snapped in the 10th start. That was against his last start out against the Cincinnati Reds. So I'm still going to say he's going to get back on the horse here, Braxton Garrett, and post a Nerfie here with these 2 teams. Plus, Miami is last in the league in first inning run scored percentage. Cincinnati is bottom 10 in first inning run scored percentage here. This is a friend that I hug, that I lay next to at night softly and caress and sleep with and wake up in the morning happy. It's that kind of friend.
That sounds more like a friend with benefits.
Yes. Hopefully financial benefits. That's about it.
The Nerfy went 5-5 yesterday. It's now hitting at a 50.7 rate for the season. But if you look at both sides and you bet either one of all your fees or all Nerfies, you're still down big units on both sides. So interesting to take a look at that. That's the Nerfy that Mark Zinno is on today. We are back with a Walk This Way play. Jared, hit us with it because we didn't have one yesterday. I felt left out. We need one today. Tell me, who do you have?
I'm glad we didn't do it yesterday because we went 1-3 with our walk props yesterday. No bueno. Logan Webb got lit up. I was surprised, actually, Watkins didn't walk anybody. And Kopech didn't walk anybody till the 7th, which for him, again, one of those nights with the walk props that was just all bad. Let's try to get back on the horse today. And I'll be honest, I don't know how confident I feel because one of the bets is an under, and you know what our record is with unders this year, a big fat 0, but I don't care because I love this spot. Corbin Burnes under 1.5 walks against the Pirates, plus 135. You might be saying to yourself, man, Corbin Burnes is one of the best pitchers in baseball. He is. He's second in the NL Cy Young race right now, according to the odds. Why is his under walks prop juiced so heavily? Well, he's had kind of a mismatched season. Last year, he was unbelievable with walks. I think he went his first 46 strikeouts before walking a batter last year, somewhere in that range. This year, he walked his first batter of the season. I know because I bet the Brewers in that game against the Cubs and I lost. But he's been kind of all over the place. However, the numbers still say he's on the right side of the 50-yard line with this juice. He's actually hitting the over 1.5 at 50% this year. So again, plus 135, I feel like we're getting a fair shake here. He's faced the Pirates twice. He walked 4 batters in one start and 0 batters in the other start. So I would expect somewhere in between here. And I think this Pirates lineup, which is trending down, might lean to more 0 or 1 instead of 2 or 3 in this particular start. Only 15 of the last 25 starters, or excuse me, only 10 of the last 25 starters have stayed over 1.5. So most of them recently against the Pirates have been under. Jameson Taillon, we bet on Herman last night. He went over against Seattle. We'll ride the Taillon Yankees train against the Mariners again tonight. I'm seeing some regression here for Taillon. So only a 20% hit rate this season, 4 of 20. but all 4 of those overs have come in his last 8 starts. He's walked 5 batters in his last 2. So he went his first 12 starts without going over 1.5, and now he's gone over in 4 of his last 8. And again, I just think the Seattle team is a buy. The market hasn't fully caught up, and especially at the plate with their walks. They forced 3 against Herman yesterday. 7 of the last 9 righties since the All-Star break over 1.5. And they've got the 6th highest walk rate over the last 14 days at over 9%. So I feel good about this Mariners lineup. Finally, Cole Irvin over 0.5. We just need 1, Cole. Just need 1. Laying a big penny here, though, minus 245. However, 78% hit rate on the season. 82% if you include last season. 41 of his last 50 starts, he's walked at least 1 batter. That equates to minus 450 odds. So, yeah, minus 245 might sound like a lot, but if you take that big sample size, his last 50 starts, really the odds should be minus 450. And the Angels, oh, by the way, his opponent tonight, have forced righties to walk at least 1 in 20 of the last 25. That's 80%. It implies minus 400 odds. I think that's where this bet should be, minus 400. So I'll gladly lay minus 245. So Burnes under 1.5, Taillon over 1.5, Irvin over a hook, plus 546 on this baby. Light me up. Let's go. Walk this way.
Let me just add one thing here real quick on James Taillon, if you'd like an extra wager here. Seattle Mariners team total is just 3.5. Minus 110. Straight 10 cents. I mean, they are scoring 4 runs against James Taillon. They might score 4 runs in the first 5 innings against James Taillon. He sucks.
Yeah, I'm glad he's not going to be starting game 3 or game 4 in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, he's been so bad as of late. Like, there's a 3-run bomb coming before the 5th inning that Taillon's given up. So he's going to walk a batter, give up a base hit and a bomb, and there you go. Jared's going to hit. I mean, I'm going to go right after this is over and take Seattle's over 3.5. That's just too low of a number against a guy whose ERA has been over 5 for the last.
We don't want Zeno to throw up his egg rolls, so you know what? It's okay. You want to know someone that's going to keep your egg rolls down? Is Jake DeGrom, over 6.5 strikeouts. Zeno, why do you like him?
I just call it a gut feeling coming back from the IL. Look, Washington is the second best team in strikeout rate in Major League Baseball behind the Guardians. They are the second lowest team in Ks per game behind the Guardians. The Nationals do not strike out a lot. However, there's only one of two ways I think DeGrom's start goes. He's either utterly freaking dominant and is mowing guys down, right? Or he's like 3 and 2/3, and it's just one of those where nothing looks great and everything else, and he's still shaking off some rust, and he's battling, and he might only last 5 innings, whatever it is. But he's either dominant or it's just a very below average start for Jacob deGrom that everyone's going to go, well, he's just coming off the IL. But my feeling is he's going to be dominant tonight. It's a high number 2 and still juiced to the under at 6.5. For a guy who hasn't thrown a pitch this year, for him to come out with a 6.5 K prop without having thrown a pitch and still juiced to the under, I'll follow the money here and go over 6.5.
Follow the money as we walk this way into NFL. I know. I didn't have enough time to warm up the pipes this morning.
I was gonna say I thought you were like in a depressed state because of it's so early out there, but you're hitting the high notes.
Oh, I finished my double shot of espresso.
After the caffeine. She got walloped with some caffeine. We're good to go.
Once the caffeine hits, it's like ready to go. Okay, yesterday we broke down AFC South win totals. Today we're breaking down player props, predictions, how we go about betting different season totals for this year. So first question for you, I'm going to pose this to you, Jared. What's the main thing you look at when trying to figure out player props to bet on at the beginning of the season?
Well, I think there's 2 different ways to look at it. The first thing is season-long player props, which we're going to drop probably a futures column in a week or 2. But overall, and we've discussed this before, Zeno, most of them trend under. Again, you look at the season-long player props, I think it's somewhere around 70% of them trend under. So, and that, various reasons, injury, scheme, whatever, but your initial look on player props, and you need a really compelling reason to go over. You need a really good handicap. You need a guy that's been in the league a long time. He has a big sample size, or he's a veteran, and he's going to stay healthy. But besides that, the initial default is always under. The individual player props, game by game, that's a different story. I think those early in the season are a little more on the over side, especially because a lot of times the books will just take last year's averages. And sometimes those averages are wrong based off of the context of preseason. So I think there's a difference in looking at both, but under is always my initial gut reaction whenever I look at a season-long future.
Yeah. I mean, for you, what player prop? Oh, go.
No, I was just going to say, I would tend to agree with him when it comes to position players. However, quarterbacks are different due to the fact that there is less likely chance for injury with them, given they're so protected and given that, there's a lot more consistency in their numbers than there are other guys. For a quarterback, like for a passing yards prop, doesn't matter who catches it. As long as somebody catches it, they get credit for the yards, right? There's less variance with that from a quarterback standpoint. So I look to those.
They always have the ball in their hands every play.
Right.
You need targets when you're betting a skill guy.
Exactly. Than the other guys for the reasons that Jared talked about. That would be the only caveat I'd add to what he said.
Yeah. What player props, Zeno, do you bet on for most season-long props, just in the past?
I mean, I look for undervalued quarterbacks publicly who I think fly under the radar from a statistical standpoint. Like, it's not worth it to me to go look at a prop for an Aaron Rodgers or a Patrick Mahomes because the juice is going to be so heavy on these things because they're publicly bet players. But I've said for years, and I hit on this last year, that Derek Carr is criminally underrated, that Kirk Cousins is criminally underrated. Last year, Derek Carr's yardage prop was at 4,075.5 yards, and he threw for like 4,800. Like he eclipsed that by like week 13.
Yeah.
Because such a good quarterback. And the same thing with Kirk Cousins. Because these guys are looked at poorly by publicly standards, by fans and everything else, it brings their number down because not a lot of people think of them high enough that if they put the number that high, everyone's going to bet the under, and there's going to be a long sense of liability there. So I look for quarterbacks like that. For example, again, Davis Mills this year is going to be completely undervalued in Houston as far as his numbers are concerned. Now, he's a quarterback that runs a little bit more, so there's a little bit more chance of injury. And that's why when we talk about quarterback, don't take the running quarterbacks. There's too much risk with them getting hurt when they take off. That's always a danger to me. But this is a guy that, again, no one thinks is going to do anything. This is the NFL. And if he plays quarterback for 17 games, he's going to eclipse all of his passing totals. He's proven to this point that he can be a competent quarterback in this league, and yet nobody's going to back him because he's on a bad team with very few wide receivers and everything else. But it would take a putridly bad season, like a 1 or 2 win season for Houston to not have him eclipse those numbers. So I just look at positions and what public people value, knowing the lines are going to be lower, and look for those spots to go over.
Jared, is it the same for you?
Yeah, I think, if you want to talk specifically about a guy like Davis Mills, I think game script.
We're gonna get into that because we have red hot chili proppers with Davis Mills.
That's fair.
I want to get your.
But I mean, I was just using him as an example. Zeno. First of all, the quarterback point is very spot on that Mark said. I am way less inclined to bet skill position season-long props because schemes change. Teams go from running teams to passing teams. And the reason that the quarterback props are intriguing is because when you take a team like the Texans, and again, we'll talk about Davis Mills, but let's use the Texans as a general example of a bad football team, at least what the odds makers expect to be one of the worst in the league. You take a Jets, a Jaguars, those bottom feeder type teams should be behind in a lot of games. So game script over the course of an 18 week, 17 game sample size, if they're behind more, I'm weighting their passing yards over a little bit more. Because right now in week 0, basically, the sports books can't account for how many games the Texans are going to be behind when they set Davis Mills' number. And that is going to matter with yards for sure. Maybe not as much touchdowns, but yards, absolutely. And those are things to consider when you're looking at player props. Like when you're looking at a team like the Texans, which we'll get into, is your quarterback going to be behind a lot of games? Or are you betting Tom Brady's over and you expect him to be ahead in a lot of games and they're going to run the ball? So those are the general things you need to put into your stew before you click submit on one of these season-long bets.
Yeah. Speaking of the Texans, let's get into Red Hot Chili Proppers because I'm going to give you a prop. You have 15, 20 seconds to say why you like the over or the under for that prop. Zeno, I'll start with you on this one because you are so high on Davis Mills. Over under. Oh my gosh, numbers are hard. I was going to say 3,700 and a half pass yards for Davis Mills.
Got it.
Over or under?
Now, that is a lofty number for him. I would have thought this would have been a little bit lower. Last year, Mills threw for over 2,600 yards in just 13 games. There is some questions about the receiving core on this team, but the problem is that, well, I shouldn't say the problem. The benefit is to taking the over here is that the Texans are going to be behind a lot, so they're going to have to throw a lot. Yep. And they don't really have a running game other than David Johnson, I guess. But, there are 2 good pass catching backs out of the backfield, which should help him. This is a high number. I didn't even look at the number prior to the show. I would lean under here, but again, and the only reason I lean under is what Jared said. I have a defensive coach in Lovie Smith there. The focus shifts, right? He's not going to want to try to air it out because defensive coaches don't do that. They play a different style of football. I think that's a thing to consider there. If you look at a Davis Mills touchdown prop, that might be different. That number may be below 20, and he can get there based off of a lot of different things. But I would probably lean under on Davis Mills at 3,700. That seems a little bit high. 3,500, you might have gotten me to go over. 3,700, a little bit difficult.
Yeah. Jared, I want to ask you about Michael Pittman. It does seem high.
Can I add something quickly about Davis Mills?
Yeah,
that's a little intriguing to me. So, again, the coach matters here too. And let's handicap Lovie Smith. He's a veteran coach. He's not worried about probably getting fired. He's been fired 100 times. So he probably wouldn't pull Davis Mills if he's playing poorly as quickly as a younger head coach who needs to make a splash and make a move to save things. Like I could see Lovie Smith just kind of free rolling with Davis Mills because behind him, it's Kyle Allen and Jeff Driscoll. It's not like there's a young quarterback behind, Mills that the Texans need to get a look, and they want their young coach to groom this young quarterback. So it's a situation that actually breeds a little freedom with Davis Mills, I would say. A little job security because there's nothing behind him. So the number is high at 3,700 with 13 games last year at 26, but game script and coaching handicap might lean me to the over, but there's no way that I'm betting.
Yeah, I'll back up one more thing here too. Pep Hamilton is the OC. Now he was part of Justin Herbert's, surgence to the top of the quarterback world in 2020 as the quarterback's coach in with the Los Angeles Chargers. So that may help a little bit. The number to me doesn't feel it should be lower for a guy who threw for 2,600 yards last year. Might have been closer to probably 32 or 33 if he played all 17 games. This feels like an inflated number here for Davis Mills particularly.
What about Michael Pittman Jr. over under 1,025.5 receiving yards? Because I know I have my thoughts on this one too.
Honestly, I think we're all in agreement. This is a stone cold over. He went 1082 with Carson Wentz last year. Come on.
Yeah.
He went 1082 with Carson Wentz.
He more than doubled his numbers from his rookie season. Hello. And now
I think he's a 1,000-yard guy. He's a 1,000-yard guy. No doubt.
This is going to be
no doubt.
I know. It's going to be exciting to see what he's going to be able to do. So what are your thoughts?
The only relative hiccup you have with Michael Pittman that you have to worry about is what Jared talked about earlier, and that is staying healthy.
100%.
Look, he played all
absolutely.
He played all 17 games last year. He got 129 targets, and that got him 1,082 yards. Right, so this seems like a slam dunk. And totally. The one thing is that makes the over come more into play is that he's now the number one there, right? Like T.Y. Hilton, even though he was banged up a ton, is gone, and he's going to be the primary target for Matt Ryan. The only other thing that keeps this number low, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, is that they have the best running back in the league right now in Jonathan Taylor. And this actually works in their favor because that number stays lower. If they had a lesser running game and had to default to passing more, this number would be higher. But because you have Jonathan Taylor, this number comes down. What a lot of people aren't taking into account, the better you run the ball, the better you pass the ball. One doesn't necessarily take away from the other.
Exactly. That's the biggest threat that he has to getting touches on the ball, right? Is Jonathan Taylor running the ball. But I looked at Matt Ryan in his years with the Falcons, and I kind of see Pittman Jr. kind of like Julio Jones a little bit. And you see Matt Ryan
I made that exact same comparison.
You see
he's got that
he kind of finds one guy that he likes to target. In 2014 to 2019, Julio Jones had 970 targets in Atlanta. I could see Pittman Jr. being, last time I checked, that's pretty good. I could see Pittman Jr. being one of the same kind of guys. Okay, last one for you. Travis Etienne, over under 1,025.5 rushing plus receiving yards. Jared, what are your thoughts?
It's funny because this was supposed to be like the college reunion last year with Etienne and Trevor Lawrence, and it didn't work out because Etienne got banged up in the preseason, missed the whole year. This is one that obviously flashes red with injury concern. The dude's coming off of a major foot injury that cost him the entire season. So very, very hard to bet a season-long prop with a guy that's never played a game in the league and is coming off major foot surgery. That being said, everything I've read, he's looked fantastic in training camp, and obviously the rapport is there with Trevor Lawrence. I would feel more comfortable, especially with James Robinson coming off his injury, to play ETN game to game. I think this is a guy that could pop, especially in the receiving yard spot, which we love the running backs, receiving yards props, which we bet on a ton last year and in prior years. But I think a season-long prop with him is a very difficult pill to swallow because of the injury concern.
Yeah. And I'll add to that in the sense that if he's going to eclipse this, it's because he has half of the yards receiving. Because as Jared mentioned, James Robinson is still going to be the bell cow back in that offense. And ETN is only going to get maybe 8 to 10 carries a game, if that. And if he averages even a high side at 4.5 yards, he's still only rushing for about 40 yards a game. right? Like it's not a big enough number over 16 games to get him in the range where he's above. He would have to have 600 rushing yards and 400 passing yards for this to hit. And I just don't think he's going to get those type of touches in an offense run by Doug Peterson, who is more inclined to run necessarily than he is to throw, especially with a young quarterback. He's going to want to establish the run and give Trevor Lawrence a little bit more to work with through play action and everything else. So James Robinson to me, and until you see what this combination looks like, you can't bet this season long total.
Yeah.
It's just there's too much
Game
variance.
to game receptions and receiving yards is probably how
Absolutely.
we're going to play ETN this year.
Totally. Okay, we're playing a new game. It's called Let's Guess It on Let's Bet It. I'm going to play your prop, and you guys will guess what you think it is. I don't want any explanation. I just want one number, and then I'm going to reveal what the number is, and we can talk about why you think that is. Okay.
Can I at least look up what the player's stats were last year first so I can get some kind of gauge, or am I just totally blindly guessing here?
Peter, blindly.
Fine.
Jonathan Taylor rushing yards. Zeno, you first.
I would say it's over or under 1,451.
What, he prices right? I'll bid $1.
Jared, what do you think?
Guess what the line? Guess what the
Wait, are we playing Prices Right rules here, where if it's the closest
Well,
yeah.
over? Wait a second. Isn't
To
that
be
what you're
honest
asking
with
me?
you, Jared, you don't even need it. To be honest with you,
Did I not understand the rules?
Zeno literally said the exact number that it is, but he was off by a hook. It's 1450 and a hook. You look.
Wow, yes.
Holy shit, that's impressive, Zeno. You almost think he was cheating. I call shenanigans.
Yeah, you'd almost think he had FanDuel Sportsbook pulled up and he was looking at the exact. Actually, that was too quick. It was too quick to be able to look at the.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, because we don't know the guy's name.
My integrity. And I didn't know who you were asking me first either, so I could have been on the quarterback page, and I would have had to scramble.
That's true. So true.
Listen, okay, true. Let's all just bow and genuflect for a moment at the king. Thank you.
It's legit. Here's your crown.
Jared, I'll give you this one. Brandon Cooks receptions.
Receptions.
I got it.
55 and a half.
Okay, Zeno, what do you think?
89 and a half.
Oh, wow.
It's 82 and a half.
That's a big.
It's 82
oh,
and a
wow.
half.
Zeno went over. He loses. Price is right rules.
I'm just closer.
We're just the closest. We're the closest. Here's the thing.
I'm not giving Brandon Cooks
for
enough credit. I apologize, Brandon and your family. I'm not giving you enough credit at 55.
Let me talk about Brandon Cooks for a second, because I actually do have a preseason bet on him. I bet on his over receiving yards, over 950 and a half receiving yards in minus 112. He's had over 1,000 receiving yards in 6 of his last 7 years. And he's back in Houston. He's creating that relationship with Davis Mills. They only played 11 games together last season. And even in those 11 games, and 6 with Tyrod Taylor, he had a career-high 90 receptions, only 168 yards short and 4 touchdowns away from his best season yet. And that is in 11 games. He's also the guy, Houston's offense, unfortunately, obviously, with John Mechie III now receiving treatment for his leukemia diagnosis. He's probably not going to be on the field this season, which good for him. It's one of the most treatable leukemia diagnoses that you could have. But he's probably not going to play this year. And that leaves Cooks to battle with who? Chris Conley, Nico Collins, and a few other targets. Does anything even else need to be said? He needs 1,205 yards to have his best season yet. He's now a 9-year NFL vet. He's huge expected target share. He's healthy. I think this should help this prop come to fruition. So I have Brandon Cooks over 950 and a half receiving yards. Lock me in on it.
If his receptions prop is so high at 82 and a half, the yards should be higher than 950. That's
a great
14
point.
Yards, 14 yards a reception. That's
why they're correlated. If he goes over that number, he's absolutely getting 1,000 yards.
100%. If he even comes near 80 receptions, he's getting to 1,000 yards.
Yeah, 1,000%. And then one other prop that both Zeno and I are on. Well, actually, I have Tannehill. You have Matt Ryan. Why do you like Matt Ryan over 24 and a half? Well, you talked about it a little bit yesterday, but
Frank Reich as a coach is a run-first coach all the way. right? And this is the same guy who's literally rolled 4 straight downs in a row, which is like unheard of in the NFL in 2022. Frank Reich don't care. Frank Reich don't give a bleep. Frank Reich does what Frank Reich do. And that's why he's the guy who actually won the Super Bowl, not Doug Peterson. I digress. That said, when you look at Frank Reich when he had Phillip Rivers threw 24 touchdowns that year, but there was a Jonathan Taylor who wasn't the Jonathan Taylor that we know now. Last year at Carson Wentz, he threw 27 touchdowns, and Jonathan Taylor rushed for over 1,800 yards. I would expect that you're going to get over 1,400 yards from Jonathan Taylor again. As I said earlier, the better you run the ball, the better you pass the ball. He's got the most competent passer Frank Reich has had since he took the job in Indianapolis in Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan, even though he's been on some bad Falcons teams over the years, has thrown for less than 24 touchdowns just 3 times in his NFL career. And one of those years was 2017 when his defense was like top 15 in the league and they went to the playoffs and he only threw 20 touchdowns. So that being the anomaly, one of the other times, second year in the league, this is an easy over for me. Matt Ryan's got a number 1 target in Michael Pittman. He's got the coach. He's got the offense. And most importantly, he's got the offensive line to give him time to throw over 24.5 touchdowns for Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I know I have Tannehill. I know I was down on Tannehill yesterday. The more I got to thinking about it, when a player has a down year, they're likely going to show you the right stuff the next year. So I'm taking his over touchdown prop, over 22.5 touchdowns, and minus 112. I am. The Titans have a winning culture. They have a quality supporting cast to be able to help this guy out. And he's coming off of that loss to the Bengals, heartbreaker, 3 interceptions in that game. He's been marinating on that all offseason. They have enough experience and talent to go back to the AFC Championship game. I know losing A.J. Brown is hard, but Tannehill comeback is still attainable. They drafted Treylon Burks. He's going to add a ton of value. They brought in Austin Hooper at tight end. Then the running game with Derrick Henry is going to be able to set up the passing game even more. And then you put that talent with the winning culture that is set by head coach Mike Vrabel, who I know Jared loves. You mix it together like a little birthday cake. You put some candles on it, and you hit over 22.5 touchdowns on the season. Lock it in, baby. Ryan Tannehill.
That is a very, very low number for a quarterback for touchdowns, especially one with a guy who's been to the playoffs 3 years in a row. That said, it's hard for me to – Titans have a winning culture. Yeah, they just trade everybody away from their winning culture, which I can't really figure out as a, good idea for success. Beyond all that, that's the NFL. I think some of that stuff happens routinely. I just, like I said yesterday with Derrick Henry, guys, I have to see a little bit. Like, forget fantasy football nerds and everything else who are going to draft him at the top of their drafts. That's fine. From a betting standpoint, I need to know that he's 100% healthy, and it's the same Derrick Henry that was knocking people on their backsides, because the one we saw that came back for the playoff game had nothing. He had no gas in the tank. And again, give him a break. He had just come back from a broken foot and missed 9 weeks of football. So prior to that, he still looked like the same guy who rushed for 2,000 yards the year before. I just got to wait and see, because if he's not right, the whole offense is going to fall apart.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Pickswise.com. Gerard, who do we got for a 3-star play of the day?
We got Schmelter again, coming in hot. Nailed it yesterday with the Mets. I think we all hit our Mets props yesterday, right? I hit the first 3. Mm-hmm. Zeno hit his team total, the play of the day, and then the run line came home too. Well, Schmelter's back up to his old tricks today. He's got and I already bet this. I am on this bet. I tailed it. Dodgers-Giants aside in this game. You probably can figure out where he's going. And also, I'm so excited to see this, but Joe Casey, Premier League 3-star play for this Saturday is already up on the site. Ricky Diamond's got tennis for the City Open. EPL. And Diane Knox-Ballas, who we'll hear from tomorrow, has a bet on the site for the Wyndham Championship. She is trying to stay hot. But we got a lot of action today. Baseball, golf, tennis, soccer. Action. Take your pick.
Pickswise.com, baby. Check it out. All right, our best bets of the day. I'm starting it out. Braxton Garrett. Over 5.5 strikeouts at plus money, plus 104. He's facing the Reds tonight, who have a really high K rate of 26.4% against lefties over the last 2 weeks. That's ranked 7th worst in Major League Baseball, okay? They're also in the midst of trading everyone away, including Tommy Pham, which, bye-bye, Tommy. Better for Tommy, bad for the Reds. He has gone over this total, Garrett has, in 3 straight, including 8 strikeouts in his last start against the Reds. So, why not? Plus money, over 5.5 strikeouts, plus 104. Lock it in. Zeno, who you got?
Going back to a nerfy here between the Phillies and the Braves. Now, what more do you need to say about Spencer Strider, who's starting for the Braves tonight? 10-1 to the nerfy this year. Plus, Philadelphia, the sixth lowest first inning scored run percentage in baseball on the road this year, and under 20% on the road. So this is a great matchup on that side. On the other side of the ledger, it's going to be a bullpen game for the Philadelphia Phillies, who's going to start Nick Nelson. Actually, for the second time this year, Nick Nelson is going to get a start in a bullpen game. His first time out was a nerfy. But Nick Nelson has been absolutely phenomenal in the month of July, posting a 1.59 ERA in 11 1/3 innings, striking out 15 and giving up just 2 earned runs. He gets through the first here against the Braves. Strider does his part, and we get home with a very moderately priced nerfy at -106.
Jared, you're also on a nerfy. Tell me more.
Oh, baby. So yesterday we got home with our nerfy. We are 1-0 betting nerfies with the plays of the day this week. We will try again today. Going to an interleague game. Going to that Arizona-Cleveland matchup. It's the guards and the D-backs. Zach Gallen, Tristan McKenzie. Combined nerfy rate since 2019 of over 76%, and a big sample size too, 117 starts. So you've got a 76% implied nerfy rate from both pitchers, and we've got -115 odds, which is implying 53.5%. Nice big cushion there for us now to examine the lineups and see if we can't find further angles. Well, Arizona has the 4th lowest scoring rate on the road this season, under 20%. Yuck. And the guards are slightly above average at home, but trending down, just 18% scoring rate in the first inning over the last 2 weeks, which is basically since the All-Star break. So their offense, which we expected to be pretty mediocre this year outside of Jose Ramirez, is certainly trending in that direction. And the thing I really like about this, and this is something I'm really leaning on now late in the year, pitchers that are facing lineups for pretty much the first time. And that's what we get tonight. Zach Gallen only has 14 career plate appearances against the current Guardians lineup, and Tristan McKenzie has zilch. He has never faced anyone in the Diamondbacks lineup. They'll get their first look in the top of the first, and I think we're going to get through the first inning without a run being scored. So I'll take the D-backs and the Guardians nerfy at -115. BetMGM, I believe, was the best price.
1K prop, 2 nerfies. That is it for us today. Find us on the Pickswise YouTube channel. Go to Pickswise.com. Follow us on Twitter. Mark Zeno, Jared Smith, Lauren Chavarro. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Let's get it. Let's bet it.